Hey guys, how's it going? Belair here. We're going to talk Vitality today. They're a pretty historic organization that really, if you look at them from a big picture, have had a pretty tumultuous last couple of years, going from all the way at the top in Season X to not even making it through top 16 and closed qualifier to make the first main event this season. So a ton of variance, a lot of roster moves, a lot of variables. Let's go ahead and get right into it. All right, so as we go through today, we're going to watch one game from the point of view of each of the three players on this roster. Starting out with Saizen here. Now, the other two games are going to be from the top 16 event. This is actually from the closed qualifiers that happened after that top 16 event. This is the win or go home match between Vitality and Sonics. I think Sonics is a roster that on paper is a team that Vitality has the capability to beat. There's somebody who made that top 16. Of course, they had to go through the closed qualifiers just as Vitality did, but I felt this was a pretty comparable matchup. And here we are, 4 minutes and 40 seconds into the first game. Vitality already up off two quick goals. One was a nice read off from Alpha 54, and I'm unsure about the other. Now, that's one that they're going to give back right away, and I'm going to try and not do this a ton throughout the video, but let's actually go back and look at it, because I think this is something that is pretty representative of a lot of Vitality's issues. We see saizen up here, doesn't get a touch on either of them, allows Tho to get the double touch, Alpha gets bumped off, and there's just nobody back. So the issue there that is something we're going to see over the course of these Vitality videos is just a lack of trust, both on the offensive and defensive ends of the pitch. But as we let some of this gameplay run here over this first game, there's a lot of important things to talk about. I think the first one I want to cover is just the history of this team. So I'm sure you're familiar with this in some form or fashion, maybe fully. But maybe the struggles of this team are totally new to you. Maybe this esport is something you're just finding, or maybe you're watching this video in the future. In any case, I think the history is pretty important. So let's trek all the way back to Season X. In Season X, that was a season that was dominated. It was fully online, right? So we didn't have a world championship due to COVID. It was dominated in Europe by Team BDS. Vitality was sticking around the whole time. The roster at that point was Fairy Peak, Kaydop, and Alpha 54. But they were always playing second fiddle to an incredibly strong BDS team. But in the European finals of Season X, Vitality ended up taking the title in the grand final over BDS, so proving that they were still a pretty viable top team in that region. And possibly the world. Moving past Season X into the 21-22 season we had last year, seemed like the competition just kind of caught them. They made the fall major, which was cool to see, and they unfortunately went out 1-3 in that fall major. The massive variable there was that Fairy Peak got food poisoning, so how much can you really make of that? Was this a true testament of their skill or what? And just as we're looking at the clock here, I think it's important to point out that Vitality is up 4-1 in this game. And the reason that I chose this game will become apparent as we're halfway through and they have a 3-goal lead. So just keep that in mind. I wonder if it's going to disappear. So back to a little bit of history here. So that fall, Fairy Peak gets sick. What are you going to do about it? It seemed to really affect him, and Saizen there's just no reason for that goal to go in. You're pressed way too far forward for a 3-goal lead, but I digress. After that fall major, that fall split, Vitality just kind of fell off a cliff. I think they were like 12th in points in the winter that followed. They did not make that major, and they decided to bench Fairy Peak. I think Fairy's okay. He's made a lot of money in his career. He was taking this little break to play some competitive Pokemon, so no harm, no foul, but benched by Vitality. And to take his place, they picked up Radosin, who we see on our screen right in front of us right now. Came over from Williams Resolve, which was a very scrappy roster, just like they are this season, but very scrappy roster. Never quite able to break through and make any majors, but never a team that you wanted to play. Kind of like, well, the Miami Heat are better, but like the Heat, where it's just a team that anytime you face up against them, you're like, oh gosh, I really don't want to have to play these guys. Bruising physical style. So they picked up Radosin, who was arguably the star player on that roster, and didn't look a whole lot better, to be frank. They ended up with the season ending, moving on from Kaydop, so completely getting rid of their iconic veteran core, and only keeping Alpha 54, who we're going to talk about in a short while here. And with that move to get rid of Kaydop, they actually brought in 2 players. They brought in Saizen, who we are on the camera of right now, and to the bench, they brought in Zen, who is a European prodigy. A lot of buzz around him right now. The reason that he is on the bench and not on a team is because he received a 1-year ban for playing in a tournament before he was old enough to participate in the RLCS. So he just played on someone's behalf, which is a no-no. He did that when he was 14, and the ban did not begin until he was 15. So we will not be seeing any of Zen in the RLCS until this spring split, when he will finally be eligible to play. Pretty poor clear, and there's a tied ball game with 20 seconds left. So with that in mind, they had to have a player who could actually play, and they brought in Zen. Zen played alongside Radosin on Williams Resolve before that roster disbanded, and he's also a pretty good buddy of Zen. They play a ton of 2v2 together, at least they did in the recent past, and they dominated. They were 1-2 on the 2's leaderboard. Just seem to be good buds from everything that I can see. So it kind of puts us in a pretty weird spot, just inherently, right? Where one of the players currently on this roster, Alpha 54, Radosin, and Zen, know that one of them won't be around in a couple of splits, with Zen all but being a certainty to kind of come in and take one of their places. So already a little bit of weirdness. How are they going to get past that? It's difficult to say, especially when the player who's going to be out isn't super obvious. I mean, we have arguments for all 3 of these players. Saizen, like we were just talking about, good bud of Zen, so kind of a tough out there, especially with a organization that probably wants to make that young star happy, so he'll stick around. Radosin, him and Saizen have some cohesion built in, playing on Williams Resolve together. Radosin also was one of the newer gets to this roster, right? They just brought him in last season, so probably not super excited to move on from him. And that leads Alpha 54, who we are yet to really talk about. It's tough to consider getting rid of Alpha because he's supposed to be the face of the franchise. Couple quick pointers. I mean, Octane GG had him ranked 11th when they did their top 20 last season. He is mechanically pretty gifted, specifically on the offensive end. And the question is, has the competition kind of caught up to his mechanics? This is something that we've seen a lot in the scene, right? Where players who are absolutely incredible, you either adapt or you die. If you're not somebody like a Metanaris who we have on the pitch right now, or someone like that, your career can be over pretty quick. So has Alpha reached that point? Well, it's even a little more complicated than that when you factor in that he has basically made a name for himself by not always being incredibly committed to the craft. People joke sometimes poor clear is going to be the last goal for them to give up the 4-1 lead. And we're actually going to take a brief pause to grab another game, and we'll be right back on the point of view of Alpha so we can talk a little bit more about him. before we get a little bit more into where Alpha finds himself, just want to give you guys a fair warning ahead of time. This is an absolute spanking we are about to see on the pitch, so I hope you're ready for that. Not going to talk too much about the gameplay, not a ton to see here, but let's talk a little bit more about Alpha as he just gives the ball over to Cash right there. So, like we were saying beforehand, Octane GG has him as the 11th best player in the world in their rankings. He's not really known for loving the game. I think I said previously, sometimes he's jokingly referred to as FIFA 54 because of how much he plays FIFA instead of Rocket League. There have even been some clips that maybe were blown out of proportion a little bit, but I think just with the kind of character already made as he drops a dime to the defense there, or to the opponent there. But when it's not a big deal in and of itself, but compounded by kind of what we already know about Alpha, there may be even worse. And I'm talking about clips that you can find on YouTube, like him being like, I can't wait until I make enough money to where I don't have to play this game ever again. So clearly not somebody who just loves the game for the game. Of course, we all have moments. We all, get tilted here and there. So does he actually feel that way? Who knows? But like we said, this is all just, the character that we've kind of created is as Alpha 54. So there's no obvious out on this team for who Zen will take the place of. Is it going to be Alpha 54, the face of the franchise and Wonder Kid at one time? Is it going to be Radosin, the slightly newer pickup on the team, or is it going to be saizen, who I think, as saizen's going to be in a poor position there, saizen, who I think is the most inconsistent player on this team, but has a very close connection to our boy Zen. So really what it's going to come down to is quality of play, right? All three of these players have something to prove. This clearly is not some roster of absolute rocket geniuses who there's no way we can get rid of any of them. They all have their flaws, and those flaws have been brought to light over the course of the beginning of this season. Not only were they eliminated from the top 16 qualifier, which is we're watching a bit of that right now, but they also didn't make it through closed qualifiers, as they're going to give up another easy one there to make it 3-0. So gaping holes on the offensive and defensive ends. I wanted to go over some stats with you guys real quick, just so we can kind of get an overview of what some of these issues are being created by. The first thing I want to go over is let's talk about some of these series, talk about how many games they went, and then talk about the goals that Vitality scored in those, right? So, for example, in this series that we have right now against Quadrant, it went 3 games, and over the course of this series, they score 2 goals. 2 goals in 3 games. Now, that's not that bad, right? Everybody, has a series, can get a little inconsistent, depends on the opponent. Let's go to Solary, right? Solary is a team that there's some history there with Kaydop and Fairy Peak both being on the team, but certainly a team that Vitality should be competitive against, if not beat. Over that 5-game stretch, Vitality scored 4 goals. So in 3 games here, they score 2 goals. In 5 games, they score 4 goals. Against Guild, 3 games, they score 3 goals. And against Carmine Corps, 3 games, 3 goals. So we have a scoring problem. And when we get onto Rados's camera in the next game, we're going to talk a little bit more about what we're seeing on the actual pitch. This one is now 5-0, a complete runaway. So they have a problem with scoring, and defensively, they seem to have pretty massive troubles with trusting each other. We see a lot of double commits. We see a lot of corny mechanics like that from Alpha backflipping on an air dribble. And we see stuff like that constantly as we rewatch film. Alpha trying to possess the ball in the midfield with 10 boost for no reason. Here, out of position, he's going to get beat by Ixo. And back wall here, I'm pretty sure we're going to have another goal here as Alpha's going to, totally whiff on that. So stuff like that is just littered all over these replays. I know that Alpha had tweeted out and then deleted something along the lines of, I forgot how to play this game. Again, another thing where does that, another whiff there, does that really mean that he actually forgot how to play this game? Of course not. It's a little tongue-in-cheek, right? But again, just stuff like that where when you build the character of the person that is Alpha 54, another whiff here for a goal. It's tough to look past some of the stuff that goes by here. We have 16 seconds left in this game, so I'm not going to move on to my next point just yet. But I just want to take a moment to look at the fact that this was 6-0, and it seemed not even that close, as saizen is going to drop another dime in the middle to Ixo. We're going to talk about some disparities in a second, but before we do that, let's hop over to our third game, riding with Radosin. All right, here we are. This is game 3, and possibly a closeout game for Karmine Corps, who are up 2-0. This is from top 16s, Karmine Corps against Vitality. So if Vitality lose this, they are gone from top 16. So rocking with Radosin here. Before we had cut, we said we were going to talk about loss disparity. And by that, I mean, what is the amount of goals you are losing your games by? For example, if you lose all of your games by 1 goal, that's not that bad, right? You know, obviously you want to win, but if they're all that tightly contested, you can kind of understand it. You know, if you're going to lose a game 3-2, that's a lot better than losing 3-0, right? Or even 3-1. If you can have it within 1 goal, that's a competitive series. Well, over the course of the season so far, with Vitality's 9 losses, 5 of them have been by 2 or more goals. So a lot of score lines that are, you know, that one we just saw, 6-0, for example, or 4-1, or what have you. And more than half, like, what is, I hate to do this, but what is Alpha doing here? Yeah, I think he just misses this ball. I watched this replay before. I think this is the play I'm recalling where his camera's just kind of funky. So, okay, let's actually... I know we're just about to talk disparity, and I'm losing track of myself, but I think this is a play that really encapsulates some of Vitality's issues. Okay, so we're going to have Radosin on the catch here, which is awesome. Now I'm going to pause in a moment. So let's look at the field. We have Vatira and Exotic both in the midfield. Saizen is to our left, moving upfield. So Radosin knows he has him as an option. So Radosin is going to catch. Saizen backs off for no reason. This ball could totally go to Saizen downfield. Radosin backs off, or Saizen backs off rather. So Radosin uses all of his boost to go nowhere. And now we turn upfield. Saizen and Alpha are both closing on this ball. Saizen drops a dime to Vatira in the midfield. There's no one there to take this ball, and Alpha is now pushed so far upfield that he cannot get back to this ball. It's just, the plays don't always have reason or intention, which I think is glaring for a team that should be better than what we've seen so far, and has been getting destroyed over the course of this event. So for stuff like that to happen is just not awesome. See, that's a great fake by Radosin. Nice bump upfield by Saizen. But this is the only thing that Vitality has been relying on to score. They aren't utilizing each other as teammates really at all. So back to that point we were talking about previously. I promise I'll finish it up here as we start it for the 6th time, it feels like. Goal disparity. 5 of their 9 losses have been by 2 goals or more. So it's not like Vitality is just playing it close and, oh man, you know, that one kind of got away from us. In a lot of these games, they're getting smoked. I know we watched that 6-0 by Goldbridge. That's the worst of it, but it's not like that is the only outlier that we've had so far. So let's talk a little bit of gameplay. We got 3 minutes left here. I think we went over most of the facts we want. Let's get into it. So great pass there by, I think that was Alpha to the middle to Radosin. Radosin's up for this ball early. He's going to catch on the sidewall. Nice bump upfield by Saizen, but Radosin is going to turn this one over. And now we have Radosin backfield on his lonesome. He's going to be able to carry this ball. He's going to try and pass it over to Alpha, who's going to go for the fake. Look how close Saizen is. He's immediately in a tough spot here, especially with this ball. Radosin able to get out and get a touch on it. And we got a tie ball game. So this is Karmine Corps just trying to win the series. This is Vitality fighting for their lives. I think the context is important here, as we're all bunched up on the sidewall. Bench to the middle. Radosin is going to clear this across. I'm going to back up just so you guys know. Radosin clears this across the middle. Why not just let Saizen take this? He has his momentum going this way. And so Radosin's just going to clear this back over and make it awkward for his team. It's just, you got to have more faith and comms in one another. Radosin's going to kick this directly to the opponent for a turnover. Risky spot to go up. He decides to back off last minute as Alpha's trying to go off the ceiling and create something. There's no reason to press here, right? We've seen that Vitality likes to sometimes press when they don't need to, when they had that big lead over Sonics. But here they're playing a little bit smarter. It is their tournament life, right? So they don't want to give it up super easily. Radosin's going to challenge to force them to turn that ball over. Alpha absolutely dumps the ball downfield and just gives it back over to Karmine Corps. And this is one we're going to replay, but I want you guys to see it first. So let's survey the situation. And I think it's important, let me pause. I think it's important to say, I'm not a coach, okay? I'm Diamond 3 Champ 1. Like, I don't know how to play Rocket League that well. But that's like saying, you know, why should we trust, I don't even know. Why should we trust Stephen A. Smith's opinion on basketball? He can't even play basketball. What does Max Kellerman know about boxing? He doesn't box. Well, you know, I watch a lot, so I hope I have some opinion here. So we saw that, actually, I went back a little bit far, so we can talk up to it. But we're going to see here that Radosin is the last man back. For a while, we can see Alpha's trying to go for this corner boost to the right of your screen. There is no boost there. Saizen is totally stuck and had a very poor recovery in the opponent's net. So Radosin with 36 boost past the midfield line in a tie game tournament life is the last man. What you cannot do is let this ball get past you for free, because it's going to put your teammates in most likely an unsavable position. So instead of just pressing this ball immediately, see, Radosin thinks he has time here. Radosin thinks he has time with exotic midair, but he doesn't have time. You got to get to that ball quicker, or at least not get absolutely dusted on the challenge. And of course, that is going to put Karmine Corps up 2-1 in this potentially final game here. I'll let you guys in on a little secret. It's the final game. They're going to lose. So, Radosin, second guesses, gets dusted there. Saizen tries to make a touch, can't even get a touch on the ball. Radosin is out of boost, stuck in his own corner, out of the play, as Exotic almost dunks that ball into oblivion. Got to make a play up. Smart by Radosin to take his time. Doesn't go anywhere. Gets the boost steal. That one's going to go right over his head. And, you know, this is just kind of it. It's just punting the ball. Be in a position to try and do something. Be pushed way too far upfield to force yourself to have to transition all the way back. Carry the ball to nowhere. Use all your boost. None of your teammates are there to do anything with it. Alpha in a 2v1 as Saizen rushes back. They double commit. Luckily, it works out. You know, it's just sloppy. And again, Karmine Corps is a good team. Does this really matter? You kind of got to force up because you're down a goal with like no time left. But let's just look at this. Radosin is just kind of just floating. Not going to make any play on the ball. Nobody's going to make any play on the ball, and that's the series. So just a tough series, you know. I don't even really know, you know, what do we make of this team. I think overall I would say they have a lot to figure out. They have a lot that they need to kind of trust in each other a little bit more, figure out some of the team dynamics. But the other thing is you need your star player like Alpha to play a lot better. We saw whiffs and misses just littered all over these 3 games that we watched. So, you know, that's kind of that's the next chapter, right? This roster definitely needs to at least make it to some events. That would be a first step in the right direction. Or we're going to see one of these players finding themselves on the bench or another team in the future as they bring in Zen to try and turn their organizational structure around here. So thank you guys for your time. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. I'm looking forward to seeing this roster moving forward. In present form, I don't think there's any way that they're going to qualify for the second event, but maybe we're going to see a totally renewed roster moving forward. I guess time will tell. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for your time, and take it easy.